evening and welcome to Meticulous Moments. My name is Juanita Kapp. You can reach me at meticulousmacarons@gmail.com or find me on LinkedIn. Since the COVID-19 pandemic hit the globe, I've had the wonderful privilege to meet a wide array of fantastic individuals. These individuals have truly touched my life in so many positive ways. Amongst this group of people, there are authors, public speakers, life coaches, poets, leaders, and visionaries. They are the unsung heroes of our time. Therefore, I decided to start the Meticulous Moments movement out of a sense of my gratitude. It is my way of giving back to the community. Let us share and reshare their stories in an effort to build a better society. Good day, audience, and welcome to yet another enlivening session here on the Meticulous Moments podcast, where we facilitate community upliftment through leadership development. Today, we have the wonderful privilege of spending time with the amazing David Chametzky. Let's read a little bit more about him. David is a speaker, producer, author, media host, growth coach, mentor, and philanthropist. He is the producer of the Coaching and AMP mentoring curriculum, which is designed to assist individuals to find time to soar on their path, discover resources for empowering personal growth, and embrace resilience programs. David is also the media host of the high-ranking podcast Peace, Love, and AMP. Bring a bat. With over 30 years in corporate America, David has always followed his passions, and in 2022, David was the finalist for the Reed Smith Award for the 2022 Institute for Mental Wellness in Legal. His podcasts and programs enable people who are ready for higher levels of living and succeeding to soar or to be on the path. Dedicated to his purpose, David co-founded the organization Goons for Good, serving people who are in need of hope and resources. I had such a lovely interview with David. He really speaks from the heart. Everything he does and says is just focused on helping other people. That's very refreshing. I do believe that we need more of that in society. So watch this interview, be inspired and be changed by this wonderful and fresh outlook, and let's make a difference together. Sit back and relax. And with that, we say welcome, David Chametzky. Good evening, Meticulous Moments audience. Thank you so much for joining us for yet another enlivening session here at the Meticulous Moments podcast, where we facilitate community upliftment through leadership development. And today we have the wonderful privilege of spending time with the amazing David Chametzky. I hope I'm pronouncing your surname correctly, David. How are you?
You are. I'm doing well. I'm doing awesome. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing so well, thank you. I'm so ecstatic to have you on. And, we met through Alma. We've been on the same live. We've spoken on Messenger. We've had a virtual coffee. So I know a little bit about you, but for the audience members who are not acquainted with you, would you like just to introduce yourself?
Sure. So obviously, I'm here in the United States, in New York. So that's where this accent that I have. But
love it.
And what I do, if on the video, the people who are listening to this through video, you can see the logo behind me is my podcast, and that's one of the things where Juanita and I are going to talk about is it's called Peace, Love, and Bring a Bat. And what that really means is, peace and love, we all understand. And while we bring a bat, it's coming on non-negotiables, knowing our stuff. Because what I do is not only a podcast host, I'm an author. I have a book that is coming out. I have another one. I have several books coming out. During the pandemic, I took my time and I did a lot of writing. I did a lot of my coaching on myself and all the other pieces, because I'm a coach as well. And I know how to get people to that next level in life. And that's why I do that. I enjoy assisting people. And when you lift somebody else up, you're lifting both yourself up also. When you're in these mastermind rooms and rooms like you and I are in, that there's always something to learn from each one of those people. No matter how many people are in the room, there's something to learn from each one of us.
I agree. And I love that. And I read your bio and I see all the things that you're busy with and everything that you've accomplished. And I get on the call with you, and here you are, and you are explaining to the audience that we can draw and learn from other people. And that to me is integrity. That to me is authentic leadership. That to me is the essence of what we want when we are looking for someone who can lead and lead strong. And that's exactly why you are so successful in everything that you do, because of your outlook and the attitude that you have. Because as you rise, you want to lift. That's very important. We don't find that often anymore, David.
Well, it's been a rough. I just was on another interview earlier, and they're like, "Wow, it sounds like you've lived a life," and I have. I've had some great experiences, and some, like most of us, some experiences that we wouldn't necessarily want to live through again. And learning through those experiences also teaches us how to be a leader. What do we want to do to lead within ourselves? Because that's what it really comes down to, is what are we going to do? We can make the changes in life, and the changes start with us. Once we're able to do that, as I mentioned, I was writing books during the pandemic, and I finally got one published in the next few weeks. We'll have a couple of other ones. It really is, what do you do and how do you see yourself? What can you heal yourself through? And it's really, the leadership starts with you. When you ask people, what do you want to do to be a leader and what type of leader? There are many different types of leaders. And I like to be a servant leader. I like to assist people, and I like to bring us all together, being part of a team.
I agree completely with you. And if we are leaders and we learn and we lead, sometimes we lead and sometimes we are being led. And if we allow that process, David, that's when we develop and grow, because we don't know it all. We'll never get to a place where we know it all.
Well, I think that's part of the challenge, right? We don't know it all, but it's also one of the things I talk about is, what is your lid when we talk about leadership? And it's, who wants to be a leader? So that's the L. And the I is your integrity. You need to know what you want to do. Are you a person who wants to lead and doesn't matter who comes along with you? And then there's the D, is the desire, the dream, the focus on so much about it. And what I do is when I talk to people, I say, hey, what is your lid number? And, a number from 0 to 10, and you get to identify that number. But then the trick is, the next question I ask is really, what do other people think your lid number is? Now, if you think you're a 10, that's great, confidence and everything like that. But if the people you're working with think you're maybe like a 2 because you're not communicating, you're not doing leadership behaviors, you're not following leadership behaviors, that doesn't work well. And your lid number would then go down. And, the desire, some people don't have a desire to lead, and that's okay. They could be a leader in a quiet way, and they're still a leader because people observe, right? You always know about the stories of people in the corner who we admire because of their integrity, their work ethic, and things like that. They're leaders just in a different way. And that's why everybody can be a leader. And what we want to do with that leadership, that's where the real power comes from.
I agree completely with you. I love that fresh viewpoint, and I know the audience needs to hear this. I know that the right people will hear this message at the right time, because really we are building society. We are building the next level of leaders in these things that we do, and we need that. There's so many things that fell apart with COVID, and Meticulous Moments is all about community upliftment through leadership development, and I really feel that is what you engage in through your Peace, Love, and Bring About movement and your podcast and everything that you're busy with. So thank you so much for that. And I want to ask you, when did your leadership journey start originally? Was there a point in time where you stopped and you said, whoa, this is what I need to do. I want to do this. I want to be a leader and I want to go in that direction. Or did you kind of move into it? What was the experience like?
Sure. I thought I was a leader in many ways for years. And, through my growth process, I could see how some ways I wasn't a leader, and I've always led. I've always raised my hand when they needed somebody to lead or things like that. And that's the difference between leadership and just being in charge. Now, there's been times I've been in charge, but I might not have understood the whole concept. And we understand there's something that has to get done. Somebody has to be the leader. But how do you lead? And that's the important part about leadership. It's how you do it, not the fact that just you do it. And that's really where the journey comes. And, it's really been a hard work in process. Much like Michelangelo has, when he did all his statues, he had this big block of marble that he chiseled away. He saw exactly what he wanted to show with us. And that's really what I do. So I've been this big block of, or big blockhead, some people might say, but I've been, and I'm chiseling away. I'm starting to get to where I'm really getting good at what I want. I don't want to say as leadership, I've been good at other things in my life, but the leadership part, I'm seeing the bigger picture. You need to know the macro picture as well as the micro picture. And again, that's knowing your lid number. And by knowing what type of leader does this situation need? Sometimes you need a leader that's just going to go, I'm going to do it, and you have to follow me because of what's going on. Or sometimes you have to go, I'm the leader, but hey, Juanita, what do you think could be the answer to this? Or am I looking at it right? This is real power by being the leader, but asking the people around you their opinions, and they might see things differently. Our perspective is our perspective, and it's because of the learnings that we had. Now, what could happen when you take somebody else's learnings? You don't have to always agree, but the idea is seeing it from another person's point of view. That's a little powerful, and that's the type of leader that I've become better at. And I think there's, we all go through a process, a journey. My coaching practice is called On the Path, and PATH stands for Personal Attitudes Towards Happiness. So all of this is really a way it leads to us. I believe I'm a pathfinder. That's why I don't have to, I'd like you to follow me, but not follow me by trusting me 100% in that everything I do is right, because I don't. I've gotten here through a lot of failures. I've gotten here through a lot of lost turns, but I now have learned how to get myself on the right path. It's all being about the right path, not just by being on any path. And that's really what that leadership journey is about. Is, when we're teenagers, I have 2 teenage girls, and they know all the answers. And, as you start getting older and you have more experiences, it really is, you learn a lot more by experiencing, seeing your mistakes, learning from your mistakes. That's why when we talked about it earlier, I've had some great things in my life, but sometimes my biggest pitfalls have been where I've learned the most. We don't always win. We don't always learn by winning everything. We learn by not getting what we wanted and why. And that's some of the power that really comes into us.
I couldn't agree with you more. Absolutely true. I was thinking as you were speaking about, sometimes we have to fail because we learn. I was thinking to myself, when there's failure, when there's a trial, when there is uncertainty, when there is tribulation, that's when we develop emotionally. That's when we get that emotional intelligence. Of course, we have to practice our faith, but we can't learn that in a book. We have to go through that experience. So a theory is very important, but the experience really coming together and shaping us into the leaders that we are supposed to be. And then if we see some other leaders, of course, falling down or maybe needing some help, we can relate to them, and we know what to say and to do to pick them up because we've been there ourselves before.
100%. It really is. That's why when I talk to people, one of the programs I use is my Phoenix influencer and Phoenix Rise modality and thinking, because we've all been in the ashes in our life. You can't just walk on a path and think that it's all going to be fine. You need to find the right path. But most of us, a win will not generally make us change. Very few of us will say, I'm number one in the world and wanted to change. And we want to change when things don't go well, when things aren't working. And when you're in the ashes of your life, and by being in the ashes of your life, how do you overcome that? Because most of us have at some point overcome something. And sometimes you keep repeating that. So the idea is not only just overcoming it, but not to keep repeating those challenges that are not quite working. And you sometimes have to modify it. I use a lot of R's, so I talk about recalibration. It's like we're fine-tuned engines, and if we can recalibrate the things that we need to do, that's going to lead us to a next level. And that's where really some powerful stuff comes in. And I really think that's what brings us to those next levels. Those are what takes us along our journey.
So true, so true. I remember when we were in the AMA call together, you mentioned the R, and I remember saying that I'm going to add an R for you, and that's that I find you are a resourceful person. And I was thinking as you were speaking now, there's always going to be something that comes at you, always.
Yep.
But learning how to handle that, learning how to navigate through that is true growth. That is true backbone. That's a solid foundation.
Well, it's part of it is to know your resources.
Yeah.
And that's the real trick. But not only knowing your resources, because when I talk about that, and I've been guilty of this, is I knew all my resources. I didn't use them. Like most of us have a gym membership, and we might not use that gym membership. So you got to use your resources. That's why when I work creating wellness plans for people, I make sure that they know what their resources are. And when we have a slip up, and that's okay, when we have a slip up, how do we get back on the right path? How do we get back to our resources, who our true self is? And those are the things that guide us back, that helps us soar. Because, really, as my book says, your heart knows when it's time to soar.
True. Absolutely true. And then you can't go anywhere but up. Now, your bat concept is phenomenal. I've never, ever heard about something like that. It's something that catches your heart and your spirit and your attention. Tell us more about peace and love and bringing it back. Okay,
yeah, sure. It's one of the many things I teach and I talk about. I do have a bat that I walk around with, but when I talk about it, I don't know how many of your listeners have ever swung a baseball bat, have ever been up and hit. And there's a special feeling when you hit the ball right. It's called your sweet spot. And we all are looking for that. So no matter what we want to do, because it's not about hitting a home run or using bats in a wrong way. It's about finding your sweet spot. And what does that mean for you? It's knowing your non-negotiables. What are the things you need to do? Finding the right balance in life. And then also keep growing and having the opportunity to just move things differently. And when you do that, you're able to hit the sweet spot. It's not, because when I say it's not all about hitting a home run sometimes is the worst thing that can happen to you, because it might end a rally. We would rather have more than one piece of, a rally is more than one hit. You'd want to have a couple of hits. And those are the powerful pieces that really happen. And by doing that, continuing, that's why consistency in anything you do, when you do find the right resources, when you find the right people to be around, it's the consistency of being around them that levels you up to that next level.
Definitely consistency is key. Absolutely love that. And every time that I see you doing something online, or if I'm with you online, wherever there's nuances, there's this consistency with you. And that is the power, that is the strength, that is really the aspect that keeps that momentum going as you build. Because I believe that you are building a culture. You are building a frame of mind, and the world needs that, because after COVID, there's a lot of people that are not sure what they believe anymore, what is going on. As long as we have peace and love and bringing it back, because the concepts that you put in there, the principles, the things that we hear that's not being said, the things that we read between the lines, those are the things that minister to us. Now, I want to hear from you the response. How do people respond to your concept when you have your bat and when you teach them?
Yeah, what's the bad? Everybody always goes, you're a tough guy. Yeah, I'm not a tough guy. I don't play one on TV. I've had anger issues in my life that I learned, and that's how I learned some of the techniques. That's how part of my journey. When you asked me about my leadership journey, I went from my own ashes and learned many things out of the ashes of that. But the bad piece is, I used to say to people, sometimes you have to bring a bat. There's a famous quote by, Teddy Roosevelt that says, speak softly and carry a large bat, a big stick. And that's in a violent way. I'm not looking to be in a violent way. I'm not looking to scare. My bat isn't. My bat is if you're talented enough, you know how to use your bat to kind of do it. But also you have to have those non-negotiables. You have to, there's a point when you have to say, here's your boundary. What are the boundaries? And you got to share that with people. That's the important part. It's not just saying, I'm going to put a line in the sand and I'm not going to tell the other person. You need to set your boundaries. It's healthy to set boundaries. It's healthy to talk about it. And this communication is one of the biggest things that we have in our lives. And when we are able to communicate properly, man, it works. You'll hit your sweet spot a lot more when you have better communication. So all of these things, having the right balance, the right swing, that's what you want to do, is make sure when it's all working right for you, you do hit the ball hard. You will feel good, because there's a great part in what I do. I'm hoping to do it in January when you and I get to see each other, is I have a batting net and I want everybody to take a swing at the batting to hit a ball, but I want them to think what they want to do when they hit the sweet spot. So for each person, it's like a board breaking. We want to have that opportunity. What do you want to overcome? What does a home run look like to you? What is walking off and saying, I did the best I could do? What does that look for you? Now, for you, maybe it's just, hey, I got my podcast, and that's great. We don't know what everybody wants to do because we're individuals. And by being an individual, we never know where that's going to raise from.
That's awesome. And what I also see is that you teach people to embrace that, originality that they have. We all have that individual inside of us, that individuality. And I think the world has lost a little bit of that over the course of the years. We always compare to each other. I always tell people, if you compare, you compete. And I always say, it's not a competition. We are there to network with each other. We are there to uplift each other and just to bring value. Now, of course, I always say crisis breeds the move of God. And as leaders, we face crisis. We either face crisis in our personal life, sometimes in our business or in our job situation, but they're all intertwined. So it really affects all our areas. What, in your opinion, should an authentic leader do in a crisis situation?
Well, first, I think everybody should be authentic. So when you look at the logo behind me about a guy in a green suit, I have a green suit. I have a bright green suit.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah. And what you have to do is you want to show up. So an authentic leader shows up exactly who they are, and know that, and admit your mistakes. There's times, and it's not only about mistakes, because we learn from our mistakes, but showing up as an authentic person, not just saying what a leader does that could be more challenging is being afraid to say, I'm wrong. I need to do that. I don't mind doing that in my personal life as well as my professional life. I don't mind saying when I've messed up. I take ownership. And part of that authenticity is I know who I am. I'm comfortable with what I do. One of my flaws, which is also one of my strengths, is really I put my heart on my sleeve. You know where you stand with me. I might not always react properly, and I've learned how to do some of that much better. But is there a time that I don't get upset? That's who I am, and I respect that because people know you're passionate. And that's really what it comes down to. Part of authenticity is being really who you are, but being passionate about it. That's where people don't understand. Like I'm a big protector. So, if you're one of my people, I protect you, my family, friends. I will go through fire and I prove it. And in fact, this past year, I proved it in a really big way. My best friend passed away unexpectedly. And I used to talk to him, and I'd say, look, I'll always take care of your mom. Like, he would try to go away with his girlfriend and things like that. And I go, don't worry, I got your mom. Don't worry. If there's anything ever needed, I'm right here. And well, he passed away unexpectedly. There was no warning. There was no anything.
Mm-hmm.
And I stood up for this past year, taking care of his mom. There was nobody else to do that. And I was able to do that. And people are like, oh, that's one of those things. Not everybody does that. I'm like, okay, I know when I put my head down at sleep, I could sleep because I kept my word. It's that authenticity. I bent over backwards to take care of his mom, and much like he took care of me as a friend. And we traveled together. We had some great. He's actually mentioned in my book about being a heart. So about perseverance. He wasn't the most physically active person. And we went to a trip to Yosemite National Park here in the States. And one of the hikes we did was up Nevada Falls, which is a really short trip. It's a 5-mile round trip, but it's really, really steep. And it's on the granite stones. And you have to be a little physically fit. We started doing this hike, and he showed me leadership in that he kept on pushing it, even though physically he wasn't able to do it. And I said, we could turn around anytime you want. But he pushed himself because he was then proud of what he wanted to do. Perseverance is part of that authenticity that we all need to do. Because if we persevere, we give up. You could show a lot of people that you give up, and that's okay. And it's okay to even say I give up. It's not okay to really give up. And you can release the opportunity. That doesn't mean you have to. Once you start something, you have to finish it. You have to reevaluate. It's that recalibration I was talking about earlier. And by doing all those things, that's where some power comes into it, is really just evaluating and having perseverance. As we know, as entrepreneurs or even as human beings,
oh yes,
things will always be tough, and we just have to figure out a way to lift above ourselves.
Love it. Absolutely love it. And I agree with you with every point that you've made. And I really feel if things like doing this, for instance, that is making an impact. And I'm so thankful that you are putting that information out there. And there's a lot of leaders, and I've seen it in the corporate world, I've seen it in the church world. They're very, very much alike. They're different, but they're also very much alike. How do leaders seek help? Because I've seen pastors and I've seen project managers just, not knowing what to do, and that snowballs and it doesn't work out for them, eventually. So how do they ask for help, and when? What would you suggest?
Well, I suggest anybody who says that they're a leader to make sure that you have mentors, and you don't know all the answers. Nobody knows all the answers. Nobody has experienced the things that we experienced. So you need to be ready to ask for help. That's the biggest challenge. And this would also go back to one of my pet passions are talking about mental health. And really, asking for help takes so much more strength than not. We all are afraid to talk about it, and I have not. I mean, I've always spoken about it, but if you Google me, I have a TEDx talk, and where I mention about that I tried to hurt myself. I tried to kill myself, and the answer is, I knew all the answers. I had what I'll call the ICTA disease. I know that already, and by doing that, is not using my resources. And until I was told it's time for you to get the help that you needed and do it, it was. Nobody told me, it wasn't a live person. It was a voice I had heard during when I was trying to hurt myself. And they were like, it's not your time, and go talk about it. So that's why I enjoy talking about mental health. I knew I had the right resources. And once I found the right resources, I did put myself into therapy, right? I don't know all the answers. And I was able to heal myself. I knew how to get myself out of that and not to get back to myself. So again, when we talk about those Phoenix moments, I still have challenges. As I explained earlier this year, this has been a challenging personal year for me, but I've learned how to get above the ashes and learned what to do in those ashes. Now, go back to that question. What do leaders do? Ask for help, no matter who you do. I mean, think about it. Again, I'm not going to go to politically, but in any country, you have the leader of the country, the president or prime minister or whatever. He has a cabinet or she has a cabinet. They have people who will then help them lead what they need to do. So we have to remember that everybody needs somebody to help and guide us through it.
Yeah, absolutely true. Wonderfully articulated. And you know, you can say that because you speak from experience, and that is powerful. And I can speak from experience. I can tell the audience that I have found myself often between a rock and a hard place, because we live in the world and the world is broken, and there are broken systems all around us, and life happens. And I always tell people, what do you do when you are between a rock and a hard place? My only remedy for that would not be the best advice I could give in that situation. It would be to say, as a believer, just look up and just give that situation to the Lord. But not everybody are believers. So that doesn't make sense to them in their framework. So if you would speak to someone, and I know you will know what to render to them, if they are not a believer and they don't feel like looking up to God is an option, what do they do when they are caught between a rock and a hard place? How do they navigate through that?
Well, there's a couple of things. I mean, even when you do look into your faith, whatever your faith is, you need to still take action, right? We can't just go, the universe, God, I need this.
Yeah. It's not going to fall out of the sky.
Right. So you need to take action. That's where a lot of people, go, well, I prayed to God. And that's okay. I'm a favor. I definitely believe, but you need to take some action. And by taking some action, and one of the things I'd also say, because you had said we have broken systems in a broken world, I'd say we're not. No, ma'am, we have not, because we're all a kaleidoscope. If you think about a kaleidoscope, has different pieces, or a mosaic. They have pieces that they all fall together to be into building something better. And even in the Japanese culture, there's a word, and I hope I don't kill it. It's kintsugi, and kintsugi is if a glass breaks, they fix it with gold, so you can erase the brokenness, but also to still use the item, because we remember, we embrace. We're not always successful, and we're really not all broken. We're all just different. Because if we think about it, there's pieces of us that can be improved. Again, going back to that Michelangelo, as we're chiseling, some chisel, right? Some statues are full, and some statues still need some work. And we all need some work. And that's really, between a rock and a hard place, that's where you have to learn how to lift yourself up, how to acknowledge it. Feel sad when something bad happens, but see what the lessons are. I always look for the lesson in everything that I go through. Some days it's harder than others. Some days I don't even want to think about being positive. I don't mean that you should be positive in everything, because if you're positive in everything, you're not seeing the negative and you're not seeing the lessons always. So I do try to look for the positives that come out of many things, but I also know where I need to improve and what we need to do. So if you're in a tough space, figure out the way. I once spoke to the gentleman. I think it's called 27 seconds or 27 hours. There's a gentleman who got stuck between a rock and a hard place. He did his hiking in Utah, and he eventually it's a movie. It's a motion picture, a major motion picture, where he cut off his arm because the way the rock fell, and he knew that if he just stayed there, nothing good would happen. He had to take some really things. He did it himself. It's a movie. It's a true story. I've spoken to the gentleman, and not only did he have to remove his arm by himself, no anesthesia or anything, but he also learned when you're in a rock and a hard place, you got to get out from it. You have to figure out what are the rational things to do. And in so many different ways, that's what we all do, is take those few minutes. And that's one of the things I teach is how to make your brain work faster, but actually by working a little slower, taking that breath. So when you're praying, if that's your belief, then take that moment, but not only pray, but make sure you're present in the moment and think about things a little bit differently. Take it a little slower.
I see in pictures, I see having a problem to face, really assessing the magnitude of the problem, then deciding what your options are. There's so many variables. I mean, there's no set structure that we can give anyone and say, this is what you should do. But, navigate yourself, trust yourself, like you've said, of course, if you're a person of faith, but always go over into that action. And I realized I had no idea that you had a conversation, and I don't know the person. I'm going to go look it up and watch the movie. But there's so many things. If he did not do that, of course, he wouldn't be with us today, I presume, because I presume it was a very dangerous situation for him. So that's a tough call to make, David. That's a tough call to make.
Yeah, well, and we all have tough calls, and that's part of the challenge is knowing what to do, and really, because we're all individuals. So for somebody who is very heavily a believer in faith, that might be their only resources. That's why I always say you need to know more than one resource and use your resources. Be not afraid to use your resources, and that's really a huge challenge. And what we need to do to learn that and slowly walk our way out of those resources. That's why when I talk about the phoenix, the bird, the phoenix, most people think the phoenix dies. It really doesn't die. It gets reborn out of its own ashes. And if you want to talk about faith, the phoenix is mentioned twice in the Bible. Once in the story of Noah, because it was Adam and Eve, and the second time was with Noah. In both times, it put itself ahead. It was the true leader. When we're talking about leadership, it put itself ahead of others. It didn't partake of the apple, and that was why God. One of the stories is why God renews itself out of the favors, and then with the story of Adam and Noah, it's a story that the phoenix offered its space on the ark versus for the other animals. And again, putting itself ahead, which is like a true leadership belief. And once we do that, that's really the powerful part, is knowing that you're a leader and what do you do? How do you work through a hard place? What are the decisions you make? And finding your resources and using your resources. So when you ask me, is there any one thing? No, because I don't know until I sit down with somebody what their resources are. And, we have to figure out what works for them. Because that's one of my favorite questions that I ask clients is, how's that working for you? So when they tell me this is what's been going on, and then I go, how's that working for you? If it works well for you, then we stay with it. If there's some ways we can modify it, great. And maybe have it more enhanced and work better for you. And sometimes, even though we've been doing it for a long time, it doesn't work for us, but we can't stop it because we don't know how to stop it. And that's why we, as a leader, we ask for those questions or ask for somebody for helping us.
Definitely. And you were speaking now about the phoenix, rising from the ashes. And we spoke on the Alma show about who would be which bird. Yep. And I remember speaking about the griffin. And it's half bird and it's half eagle and it's half lion. And my nickname in many of the groups that I am is lioness. I guess it's because I come from Africa, and I guess it's my personality, and of course my hair I think resembles now that color. So everybody always refers to me as the lioness. I also have a rock here in South Africa where I go to meditate. And spend time in nature, and it's shaped in the shape of a lion. So I'll send you that photo. But for interest's sake, for you, if you had to choose a bird, is it the phoenix that you would choose? Is it the eagle that you would choose? Which bird would you associate yourself with?
It is the eagle. It is the phoenix. I mean, I like the eagle because the eagle always knows that when there's a storm, it rises above the storm, because that's where the calmer seas are. Same thing like a fish. A fish, when there's rough waters, it doesn't go higher towards the rough waters. It goes deeper. That's why when I talk about it, I always go, either you have to, don't go into your head too much. So when the eagle is soaring, it knows, it trusts itself to go higher and be able to handle the storm. So it's that trust. It's that there's a lot of different metaphors I use when I discuss that. But also, what type of bird is a phoenix? Because I have rebuilt myself. And, while it's a mythical, we're not sure, kind of like the griffin, which I had never heard of, which I enjoyed that you did that, because when we're sitting in a room and everybody, so even that day, I asked everybody what bird that they were going to be. And what was it? Everybody was a different bird, because we're all individual, but we can flock together. Birds, we can flock together to learn how to soar, because we know when our hearts know, and when our hearts say it's time to soar, we know what that feels like for us. And that's really what we all want in life, is to be able to soar and have that feeling, and what that means to us.
Phenomenal. Absolutely true. What motivates you, David? What motivates you?
I love giving back. I really do. I'm a heavily philanthropy and assisting people through the darkest challenges. I've been lucky enough to do a lot of different philanthropy, and seeing the people. I don't like to just write a check and offer help, which is a great way. If that's the way that you do it, or the audience does it, that's awesome. Still give as much as you can give. But I like the hand holding. There was one year I personally wasn't feeling well, and because I was going through a very serious personal crisis. But it was Thanksgiving here in the United States, and I went to a food kitchen and to hand out food. And when I got there, they said, "We have too many people, but you're a big guy. Would you mind being the security guard for today? We're not sure what's going to happen." And long story, I was disappointed. I wanted to help people, but God puts us in the way, because this is where I will talk about God. God puts us in the right place at the right time. So as I'm walking around, there was this family who was talking to the pastor of the church, and I heard the woman crying and the pain that she was in from the experiences that she was going through. And I walked over to her and I showed her a magical technique that I use to help her reset herself and feel better. And she then smiled. We sat with her for a little while. So where I'm going with that's really what we do, is by not giving up, by motivating. You never know at what moment you're going to change. Even with the TEDx talk, when I talked about trying to hurt myself, I had a lot of people watch the video over the years, but 9 people have reached out to me to ask me about my opinion, my experience. Some of them were people who were thinking about suicide, and I was able to guide them to get the right help that they need. And 2 families reached out to me of people who, unfortunately, their family member was successful. And most of us are not successful. So statistically speaking, 82% of people who try to kill themselves are not successful. We hear about the people, who do, but 11% of people are successful. 89% of people are not successful. And we have to work on those people. There's that famous, as a person from your country, right? Desmond Tutu, right? He used to say, we have to not only look at that there are people falling in the river, we have to find out why they're falling in the river. And that's really one of the big things that we need to talk about with mental health. It's not that we all experience it. If you get angry at your partner, at your kids, it's considered a mental health, right? We're not supposed to yell. We're not supposed to do anything. But that's part of our human experience. How you yell and how you cope through those mechanisms, that's the real challenge. So that's one of the things that motivate me to assist people and also to keep improving myself.
We always have to keep improving. If we are leaders, we are bound to lives of personal and professional development forever.
Right.
And, in our world, we see things, we've seen the best of leadership, we've seen the worst of leadership. And I was wondering if you can illustrate to us what's the best illustration of leadership that you've ever seen, and what's the worst illustration of leadership that you've ever seen.
Yeah, I've seen really good leaders who sometimes make mistakes, and I've seen really bad leaders who sometimes do something great. A broken clock is right twice a day. But the illustration of great leadership, one of the charity events I just ran this past, I was part of a team, so I didn't run it myself. I ran, I was part of the team that ran to raise money. We raised $30,000 through a softball league that I'm in here on Long Island, and the person who ran the league was in charge of the. I was the commissioner of charities, but he ran the show, and I've been a part of that charity for a lot of years, and it was run so well. And I walked over to the leader, and I was like, I thought he did everything great. He thought about it in advance. He planned it. It was methodical. It was great. So that was one of the things, and I think that's part of what we do as a great leader. Really, is the opportunity to plan, and if you plan it properly. And then on the other side is the worst illustration. There's people who don't know how to plan. They're the leader. They're leading, but they don't really see the bigger picture. They don't see everything. They react to emotionally at times.
Yeah.
They do so many different things differently that it doesn't work right. So it really goes back to the good leaders and bad leaders, what they do. But bad leadership is not noticing the thing, is just being so steadfast on your personal goal, not seeing the group that you're trying to help. What are you trying to lead? And are you leading them in the right way? So, there's a lot of people who might be leaders, but if you're going off a cliff, it's not the leadership that you want to have.
Absolutely true. That is so amazingly spot on. And we have to consider these things, but we have to discuss these things. Sure. I know there's people here in this audience that have heard some of the things that were said this evening that are doing introspection as we speak, because we started that conversation for their minds now to go into that, reality for them. So thank you so much. Now you've seen so much in the business world. You've seen so much, I'm sure, with your podcast. What does not giving up look like?
Well, it's really easy. It's really easy to say, I give up. I'm done. I was very, grew up. I heard I'm done a lot of different ways. And I've said it, I'm done. But one of the things is not giving up. Is you could say you're done for now. You need to finish off that sentence. And I've learned to finish off the sentence. I'm done for now. I need to reevaluate the situation. I need to look at things differently for now. And that's where the power comes into all of us, is what are you doing? And, why are you, giving up? And you can give up. There's a point that you have to just say, there's nothing repairable about it. That's where I can't tell you what it is for you. What it is for me is by not giving up. I know what's in my heart when I really listen to my heart and not worry about the outcomes. So when I do a bunch of work, I talk about unconditional love, and unconditional love is one of the most powerful forms of love. You're not asking for anything in return. If you do something for somebody who cannot say thank you, or you're not doing it. So as we're coming into the holiday season, how many of us are buying gifts because my partner might be buying a gift worth $5, and so I have to spend that much money or whatever. $5 is minimal, so you better spend a little bit more, people, for your partner. But
yeah.
But the truth of the matter is really, what are you doing it for? And that's really what it is. What does that mean to you? And for me, unconditional love is really just saying, not only the words "I love you," those are easy, but it's showing it. It's really doing something that nobody could, you're not expecting an answer. You're not expecting, a thank you or, oh, wow, that's cool. You're just doing it. I mean, I've sent flowers to friends and just to say, just because I remember there was one time in Seattle, I was on a business trip and I wasn't feeling great. I bought a bunch of bouquets of flowers and walked through the streets giving out the bouquets of flowers. And
Wow.
and the surprise is people don't want it. There were a lot of people who walked away from me. I wasn't asking them for their number. I wasn't asking for anything. In fact, the few people that did receive it, I walked, they took it and I kept on walking straight. And I didn't look, I don't know what their reaction was. And it made me feel good. That's why when we do charity work or, you show up in somebody's life, you're really helping two people. Not only are you helping the person who needs to receive some of the help, you also receive the energy of your heart. You receive the ability that you assisted somebody. You weren't asking. That's why, I do sometimes show it on social media, the charity work I do, but I don't show everything I do. And the reason why I do show it, I want to motivate people. There's so many little things. One of the people that I met in my life was Frank Shankowitz, who is the man who created the Make-A-Wish Foundation. And the advice he gave me, he said, everybody could do something. So it doesn't have to be a big showing. It could be one of the organizations I do assist is called Pink Cans for Cancer. We collect cans, recyclable cans and bottles, and collect it and help people who are going through cancer, them or their family. So there's so many different ways that we can make the difference in our lives, being a leader and leading in small ways that people would be like, oh, that's not a big deal. Well, it's a big deal for the person who received that opportunity. And that's what we have to remember.
That is what we have to remember. Absolutely true. And you unpack that so well for the audience. And I wanted to add, what does not giving up look like? And my answer from my side would be like this. You and me in this room, in a Zoom room, we are on different sides of the planet, about 10 or 11,000 kilometers away from you. And here we are, and we have one goal in mind, and that is to help people out there. And we can only do that because we've been there. And we did not give up. We lasted. We made it. And other people draw from that energy, and they're learning. And we learn from each other. I learn from people every day. I teach little kids martial arts classes. They teach me the most valuable lessons in my life. And they are small and they're not even aware of the principles and the things that they teach me. And that is the beauty of life to me. So, and also to see that they don't give up, that it starts small. And that's where it really starts to get bigger and more elaborate for them. So I want to ask you, we are down to our last two questions. My goodness, this hour is just sped by. I appreciate you so much. And I've got two questions left for you. And those are, what is next for you? Because we want to support you. We want to cheer you on. We want to lift you up. And we want to follow you on social media and network with you. I already do that, but the audience wants to join in. And do you have any final words of wisdom for the audience this evening?
Yeah, I don't know about wisdom, but I do. So, well, what's next for me? Well, I guess January 6th, you and I are going to get to see each other. Yeah, so what we're going to do for the AMA, right? We're part of AMA, and we're going to have the boot camp, the author boot camp. So I'm looking forward to the boot camp. And I'm also looking forward to a lot of other opportunities. Right after the boot camp, I'm flying out to Salt Lake City for 2 days where I'm going to be doing a bunch of interviews on podcasts. So we'll talk about my messages, and I'm looking to get out on more stages. And, you and I were talking offline, so I'm going to put it out here right now. I'd love to figure out a way to get to South Africa. That's one of the places on my bucket list to be out there and do some photography. So you need a speaker? Let's go speak, man. I want to change the world, not because I'm changing the world. I want to show people what they have within themselves, because that's the biggest part, is knowing empowerment, and being a leader is showing people how to empower themselves. And that's that's really one of my goals. And that's, part of my final words. The wisdom that I have is you don't have to do it yourself, right? We talked about that. But finding the right people, surrounding yourself in the right rooms, being in the right rooms where you can learn as well as you can teach. Those are the powerful ways. And really, I want everybody to find peace and love in their life. And when you're bringing a bat, bring that awesome thought. Bringing an awesome thought and knock it out of the park. Find your balance. Take that swing. Hit your sweet spot.
Beautiful.
And if you did the best that you can, that's all anybody could ever ask.
I love that. I have three things that I really have to comment on. And the first thing is, I can't wait to meet you in person at the Business Bootcamp 6 and 7 January, because I really feel that energy, and I believe that everything happens for a reason. So I'm going to be so happy. You are going to be bringing your bat, and I'm going to be bringing my martial arts weapons. So we are going to have a lot of fun there with our demonstrations.
Awesome.
And then the second thing I wanted to say is, I personally invite you to join in the AMA African Safari that Emilio and I are putting together for AMA for next year. My door is always open. There are going to be speaking opportunities during that safari. And of course, if you want to come and visit just for a holiday, you know someone. I know we mentioned and we laughed about it in the interview with AMA. You know a guy. Well, you know a guy.
It's at New York. I know a guy. I know some people.
Yeah, so you know a gal here in Africa, so you're always welcome to come and visit. And then I just want to say, David, I see your heart. I see your mission. I'm completely here in support of you. I will always cheer you on, and I know you're going to do great things for amazing people, and people are going to look back and say, my life changed because of David and what he imparted into my story. And that's really the meaning of life, when we can give and when we can transform and just add value. So thank you for adding value to the Meticulous Moments audience. I really appreciate you. I'm going to come and give you a big South African hug there in New Jersey very soon.
I can't wait.
Thank you so much. And to the Meticulous Moments audience, thank you for joining us for this enlivening session. You know what to do. I'm going to make David's contact details available. Follow him, use his products, network with him, cheer him on, and we'll see you in the next session. Goodbye.
Thank you so much.